Chefs of Reddit, what are some tips and tricks that everyone should know about cooking? Whatever you're sauteing, don't crowd the pan. Get a bigger pan or cook in batches, but the reason your potatoes, veggies etc. aren't getting brown and crispy is because they're drowning in their own juice. I can confirm this. I am not getting a tan because I keep drowning in my own juices. Source is a potato. A falling knife has no handle. Forever true. Don't learn this one the hard way. Absolutely, if you drop a knife, jump the frick away from it and let it hit the floor. Also, don't cook with no shoes on. The roux, probably one of the most useful things in cooking. It's used as base for sauces. Heat up a few TBS of butter in a saucepan and stir in an equal amount of flour. Once it is thick and frothy, you can add a liquid of your choice for the base of your sauce. Milk or chicken stock are my favorites. Add as much as necessary to reach your desired consistency. Add spices or melt cheese to make a great cheese sauce. Be creative. One tip I learned about making roux is to cook it until it starts to smell nutty. Yes, I know about rice cookers and I own one, but this is still a tip. Stop lifting the lid off of a pot of rice. Look at me. Look at me. Stop taking the lid off the goddamn rice. You complain about mushy or crunchy rice and it is either because you don't measure or you won't leave the lid alone. The steam cooks the rice. By taking the lid off you ruin everything forever. Welcome to my childhood. Puerto Ricans eat lots of rice and we learned pretty dang quick not to touch the pot on the stove. My American friends will ask how to make PR rice and I have to break them of the compulsion for checking and stirring and checking again. Just leave it the frick alone. Chop with the rear part of the blade, not the tip, in a rolling motion. And then flip the knife over and use the back of it to shove stuff into a pot, not the sharp side. Always taste your food while cooking. I always have like 5 spoons beside me while cooking. This allows you to accurately adjust seasoning, flavors, and cooking time. It is tough at first to know what to adjust, but you get better at it with time and it will really improve the quality of food you make, especially over salting. To help with knowing what to adjust, my tip from below would help. Smell the seasoning you want to add while tasting. It's the opposite effect of plugging your nose so you don't taste things. The flavors will combine and you'll know if the seasoning is going to work before adding it. Dull knives are more dangerous than sharp knives. And crap conversationalists. Shameless plug for our Ask Culinary. Since people seem pretty into this topic, I have used that place a ton for general advice, specific advice, tips, tricks, or whatever. It's got a lot of highly trained chefs and great cooks and experienced bakers. When making pork chops, cut the ribbon of fat so that it is in pieces instead of one long piece. It prevents the chop from curling in the pan and cooking unevenly. So that's why they curl. Thank you. Steaks continue to cook even off the grill. Scrambled eggs also do this. Take them off the stove well before they reach the desired consistency. Use weight, not volume, to measure ingredients for baking. As someone from the UK, not weighing ingredients sounds baffling to me. We don't use cups for anything. All about the grams and ounces. Peel your carrots. Not everything needs to be on high heat. A good chef knife will be the only tool you really need for home cutting. Save your bacon fat. Soups are the best way to use leftovers. Chef's knife and bread knife. Sorry, but a serrated blade is just far easier to cut bread with. A chef taught me that sprinkling pepper onto strawberries makes them taste like strawberry flavored candy. I tried it and definitely recommend it. Gonna try this one as soon as strawberries are back in season. 8 months to go. The best advice I've gotten is that the main 2 differences between a restaurant chef and a home cook, other than training and basic cooking knowledge skills, is that the chef will season, salt, much more generously. Second and most importantly, clean as you go. You will become so much more efficient in the kitchen, will always have space to work, and will have very little cleaning work to do when you're finished cooking. Quote from a friend: use real butter. It's a mistake to even have margarine on hand. I'm no professional, but in my years of cooking I've found that not everything needs to be cooked on high. Don't overthink your recipes. Instead of trying to make everything fancy, just learn how to shop for quality ingredients. Food doesn't have to be fancy to taste good. A simple recipe made from quality ingredients with proper technique is almost always better than being fancy. Use butter. Use butter. Use butter. I prefer UK style butter. Don't be afraid of it. Its pros outweigh its cons. Don't bounce around when you're learning to cook. Learn to make one dish well before moving on. This will make learning other dishes far easier. Olive Garden chef here. Here's what you do to blow your friends and guests away. 1. Hire a bunch of high school students or kids. 2. Have them take the boxes out of the freezer and begin to thaw everything. Take the soup out of the freezer. Thaw it. Add noodles. Serve. Open the pre-seasoned and pre-cooked entree. Reheat it in frying pan, oven, or deep fryer. Plate it. Mark up the price 2000% and tell your guest their family. Was going to say that Olive Garden chef is oxymoronic, then read the rest of your post. Cold oil, hot pan, foods won't stick. Hot pan, cold oil, food no stick. If Yan can cook, so can you. Garlic makes everything better. I was reading a soup recipe to make some split pea soup my fresh ham leftovers, and it said to add 1 clove of garlic. I immediately disregarded that and changed it to 1 head of garlic. It was a small head, and 1 clove wasn't going to do jack in 4 quarts of soup. The soup is awesome, no regrets. I'm not a chef, but an awesome chef's knife that I got as a gift changed everything in how I prepare my food. I can't tell you how important it is to have good knives. It makes everything go so smoothly. One good chef's knife, and maybe a good paring knife, is really all you need. Why so many people think they need huge knife sets is beyond me. Just get a really high quality chef's knife, or santoku if that's your thing, and you're pretty much set. Just make sure to keep it sharp and care for it properly. Wash your goddamn hands. 1. Pay attention to plating. A nice, clean, warm plate can make the difference between an okay meal and a great meal. Most restaurants I've worked in aren't serving anything special. They just serve it in a way that makes it look special. If you treat your homemade stuff like it was in a 5-star restaurant, you can make hamburger helper taste like scratch-made casserole. 2. Read recipes completely and prepare before starting. Don't start cooking until your mise en place is completely squared away. Get out every knife, tool, and pan you will need. Measure out all of your ingredients and put all of them on the counter next to your stove. When you are on step 1 of your recipe, you should know what steps 2 and 3 are. With most recipes, you don't have time to go back to the cookbook to double check what you're doing while your chicken dries up into leathery bits in the pan. Plan ahead and make sure you're ready to finish your dish before you start it. 3. A good sauce can save almost anything. Learn how to cook at least 3 sauces from memory with everyday ingredients. A red wine sauce, cup or so of red wine, some butter, salt, onions and pepper can turn any cheap steak into a great meal. Simple marinara can be made for under $10 bucks, and is just as good as the $20 pasta you get at Maggiano's. Find some recipes you like and memorize them. 4. Season everything. Cooking chicken Alfredo? Season the chicken, season the pasta, season the sauce. Never assume that one flavor element will permeate the whole dish. The difference between a $1 plate of pasta and a $12 plate of pasta is putting the right amount of salt in the water. While we're on the subject, 5. Taste everything. Taste everything, all the time. Good Italian chefs taste the pasta water before they drop the noodles. Taste your sauce every time you add to it. Never throw things in a pan and wait to see what happens. You should know what your dish will taste like before it hits the plate. Don't taste boiling pasta water. I have seen lifelong chefs do this, and it boggles my mind. Always keep a good French cookbook in your kitchen. The French are known for their food for very good reasons. Unless you're baking, recipes are guidelines, not infallible rules. Once you are comfortable with the basics of cooking, apply those skills to your own original ideas. Use cookbook recipes as jumping off points for ingredients you really like. How to hold a knife. I see a lot of people hold a knife with their index finger running along the tip of the blade and the rest of their hands clasped around the hilt. This makes it pretty difficult to control the knife. The best way to hold a knife is to pinch right on the seam of the hilt and the blade with a flat thumb and the knuckle of a curled index finger. Way more stable and comfortable. And the first step to using a knife like an extension of your body. Be one with your knife. Using the knife, granted it is sharp. If you are having a hard time making smooth cuts, then you're probably cutting wrong. Standard motion is front back, or back front. The former is a French tech. The back is traditionally Japanese. Compared to the up-down hacking, it feels like turning wood into butter, especially important for greens, because a gliding motion with little no pressure will keep them alive and crisps when they're chopped to bits. The alternative will cause browning and an unpleasant grassy flavor. Dicing an onion. I usually chop the onion in half vertically, place the half on the cutting board, and make horizontal cuts from the bottom to top towards the stem, where all the layers meet, making sure the last cm or so is still intact. Keep your palm flat on top so you don't lose a finger. Then, turn the onion 90 degrees so said stem faces north, and slice vertically moving right to left still minding the connected end, measuring your cuts with the curled in knuckles of your left hand. Turn it back to starting position, and slice the whole onion from top to bottom. I think a lot of people know this anyway, but thought I'd throw it out there just in case someone doesn't. TLDR. Hold a knife like a fan. Take care of your knife. Always have onions in house, and don't lose a fricking finger. If your soup is a little oversalted, place a peeled potato in the soup. Remove the potato after 15 minutes. If it's still salty, order a pizza. Sharp knives mean less wounds. Bacon grease for every pan related event. Learn how to properly cut an onion. Halved, top removed, scored vertically toward the intact base, then sliced horizontally. Shallots fricking rule. When you can taste the salt you've used too much, generally speaking, and mandolines are wonderful but remain fricking. Cooking mama is how I learned to cut an onion. Perfect cake. Weigh however many eggs you need. 2 or 3 generally, everything else should be the same weight. Mug, flour, sugar etc. Do not put cast iron stuff, skillets, grill pans, etc. in the dishwasher, unless you like ruining things. Also, presentation somehow adds to how good the food tastes. You don't ruin the cast iron. You just need to reseason it. People are so dramatic about cast iron on Reddit. Learn to reduce onions. Once you're good at onion reductions, a whole world of sauces opens up and people will think you're a cooking god. I keep belittling them and saying nasty things, but it doesn't appear to be affecting them. If using raw chopped onions in a dish, soak them in cold water first to draw out the sulfates. On a related note, if you're using raw onions in a dish that will be stored for a while, run some boiling water through them briefly and the flavor won't grow upon sitting. For example, potato salad. Perfect onion first day means overpowering onion the second day. Peanut butter can really round out the flavor in sauces and stew-like dishes. Peanut butter will also allow you to blend sauces where oil is involved, as in Thai dishes, because peanut butter has an emulsifier in it. Only a teeny bit of peanut butter is required, say half a teaspoon for 3 cups of sauce. I'm not a chef, just a budding hobbyist home cook, but here's what I've learned so far. First, a few random basic things. 1. Once you've got something on the heat, the clock is ticking. Do every bit of prep you can before you start cooking so you don't have to rush. Chop all of your vegetables. Measure ingredients. Familiarize yourself with the recipe. Makes things much less stressful. 2. Keep your knife sharp. Chopping vegetables is a zen pleasure with a sharp knife. 3. Put a wet paper towel under your cutting board to keep it from sliding around. But here's the one thing that has, by far, made the biggest difference in cooking for me. 1. Take notes when you cook for each recipe. I basically have a lab journal, where I record how it went, what modifications I made, what I think I should try next time. I found that I'd cook something, figure a bunch out, but then forget it all by the time I got around to cooking the same thing again. Now I just go back and look at my notes. This also means that over time, I've tailored recipes to my palate and my equipment. It's a great feeling to have a few dishes that I've perfected to exactly the way I like them. This may sound like a chore, but it takes like 30 seconds to type some notes and it's a huge help the next time I come around to the recipe again. Don't cook bacon naked. Microwaving is fine. Till a lot of people here don't use salt. Brussels sprouts need to be cooked roasted for at least 20 minutes to evaporate off the chemical that makes them taste bitter, and cabbage why. For boiling, blanching anything, you want to use as much water as you can get away with, and salt the water. Otherwise, when you put the food in the water, the temperature of the water will drop too much, and the food will not boil correctly. Ditto with pan cooked anything. Crowd the pan, and you'll get less satisfactory results. You can use a little baking powder soda to help caramelize things. Your pan should be heavy to help keep the heat. Non-stick is only for fish and eggs. When you chop juicy vegetables for a salad, tomatoes, peppers, zucchini, etc., salt them before adding them to the salad. It will brighten up the flavor of the whole salad without making it salty. All grains should be cooked in stock instead of water. If possible, even vegetable stock will add richness and flavor. Always use low sodium stock, as it makes it easier to control the flavor. Truffle oil is fake, but adds amazing richness to starches and meats. Use sparingly. Making your own salad dressing is stupid easy. Combine some combination of garlic, shallot, onion, mustard, lemon juice, wine vinegar, herbs in a bowl or jar. Then take the oil of your choice and add it in a slow stream while you whisk the bowl until it is all blended together. Taste, and add salt and pepper. If you're using a jar, it's even easier. Just put the top on the jar and shake the whole thing up. Brine your land meats. Boil water for a minute with a bunch of salt. Should taste like the ocean. Chopped lemons, garlic, peppercorns, herbs, whatever, and then let it cool or put a bunch of ice in it. Make it saltier if you're going to add ice. Then soak your meat in the cold broth for 12 hours before cooking. One more. It seems like common sense, but I see this all the time. Taste as you go. You should be dunking spoons or forks in anything you're making every few minutes. So many people just throw in a bunch of ingredients and then expect it to work. I even taste my raw hamburger meat blend. I figure if it's going to make me sick from just a little bit, I shouldn't be serving it to my guests. Baking soda, not baking powder, which isn't even a thing. Edit. I should have said roasted Brussels sprouts instead of cooked, which implies any method. Basically, you've got to cook off the chemical that makes it bitter. You can do that in oil fairly quickly, which is why you can saute them for 5 minutes at high heat depending on thickness and get it done. Or you can boil them for a few minutes. Though personally I don't care for the texture then. Some people even claim to like the bitterness, but I don't. It's sulfur-y and weird. Different oils for different types of cooking since they all have different smoke points. Seems really simple, but few, like me for a while, never knew this and did dumb stuff like using olive oil for everything. Most olive oil is for light cooking or really just flavoring. Something like canola or vegetable for general cooking. For high heat, fillets and stuff that need a sear, use grapeseed or sunflower, but I'm not a chef. Quality skillets. Pots and pans make a positive difference in how the cooked food turns out. Example, on 2 9-inch cast iron skillets, one of which is a Griswold and the other one being a Lodge. The Griswold will have a much finer surface and the Lodge will be much coarser. As such, if you are cooking eggs in them, on the Griswold the eggs will stick less, turn easier and have less of a tendency to burn than they do on the Lodge skillet. If you think you want to go with aluminum pots and pans, choose cast aluminum. It is heavier, thicker walled and distributes heat more evenly, thus giving you greater control over the final cooked foods. The Lodge pans do have a coarser surface, but that doesn't stop me from having eggs that slide around the pan and flip very easily. On my Lodge, the Lodge pans are easy to find, cheap, and perform just as well. No need to try and track down a Griswold. There is no way you'd be able to tell a difference between eggs cooked on either. Proper method for peeling cloves of garlic. The flat of the knife method is great for smashing garlic, no doubt. This is a quick and easy way to prep garlic for tossing into a pan, etc. But not necessarily the best way to peel garlic. Take your cloves. I often cook with more than one, so this works well with multiple cloves, and put them in a bowl. Take a matching bowl or a plate and cover the bowl with the cloves in it. Pick it up, and shake the bowl vigorously, like you are trying to play the maracas during a seizure. Really shake them. After about 20 seconds, put the bowl down on the counter, remove the covering bowl plate, and what do you know? Your peeled, clean garlic cloves are nestled in their own bed of stripped skins. Leaves the cloves intact and is great for other prep methods. Food tastes best if prepared by others. Next question. I'm the exact opposite. Love the taste of my cooking even though I know it's probably very average. Kind of I made this. I combined raw random ingredients. I am all that is man. You can make beef jerky in the microwave. Make a vegetable stock the traditional way. Then bring to a boil, add fresh chopped vegetables. Bring to boil again. Turn off heat and let steep like a tea. Your stock now tastes like fresh vegetables instead of steam table overcooked vegetables. Balance tastes with salt, sweet, bitter and acid. You can cook a really nice piece of fish with ease by broiling it. Submerge them in a saucepan of white wine with the skin exposed. Broil. The skin will render to a delicious crisp while the evaporating wine will cool the flesh from overcooking. Invented by a chef I can't remember the name of at the moment. There is no such thing as traditional Italian food. Traditional Italian food is about using what is local, available, plentiful, cheap and fresh, and noodles are fine, too. Don't go out of your way to use a bunch of imported expensive crap you're not even sure you like, unless it makes you feel better mentally to eat crap you paid too much for. Cooking in the style of a region of Italy is fine, but Bologna's dishes vary from one housewife to the next, or house husband, whatever. Use some of the pasta water in your sauce. It's full of pasta flavor, which is a legit flavor, and starch, which naturally thickens your sauce. And it's salty, so you can use less salt. I'm assuming people know that your pasta water should taste like the sea. Boil your beets with clove and coffee beans. They'll be heavenly. Or foil roast them. That's fine, too. Duck confit can get you laid, and is the easiest thing in the world. Look it up. Instead of being a dumb butt and wasting time, smash your garlic, don't peel it, and infuse your oil with it, and then remove the cloves when finished. The garlic's peel will prevent burning and no risk of biting into a giant piece of garlic. Unless you're from Gilroy and like that crap, you can cook a steak in a oil-less pan. Just get the pan hot and place the steak with the fat side down. First, the fat will render, and grease your pan. Steak flavored with steak instead of canola oil. Searing does not retain the juices. Resting your meat retains the juices. You can cook sous vide with Ziploc bags and igloo coolers. Some dude at MIT wrote an article about it. Look it up. David Arnold is the crap. Listen to his podcast Cooking Issues. He's like Alton Brown, but you can learn and you don't have to look at Alton Brown. Sorry, Alton Brown. Wait, go back. I wanna know how to make beef jerky in the microwave. My life is like this close to being complete. Make your own stock. It's remarkably simple and freezes fantastically. Use a bird carcass or wingtips plus some roasted vegetables to make a huge batch. It will make anything you make taste better. Prep your vegetables before starting your meal. If you know you're making a meal at night, then cut up the veg in the morning and leave in a Ziploc or whatnot. It's a lot easier to get a meal timed properly when you're not trying to do too many things at once. When peeling garlic cloves, use a chef knife to stab any mother sucker that mentions that goddamn self-evident nonsense about using the flat of the knife to help peel garlic. Shake the dickens out of it. Kosher salt. I tell this to every person I talk to about cooking. Your food will taste much better and it will be much harder to oversalt your food with kosher salt than it will with iodized salt. I guarantee that you will notice a huge difference once you make the switch. Contrary to popular belief, you are not actually food. Salt. My god, salt your food. If there is one mistake that home cooks make, and then wonder why it doesn't taste as good as a restaurant, it is usually too little salt. Salt opens up the receptors on your tongue and enhances the flavor of pretty much everything. Easiest example is salting the water you would use to boil any starch, pasta, potatoes, etc. You should put a lot of salt in the water. Think about how much you would consider a lot, then double it, and add that much. This is the best time to season any starch, when it is boiling. Then adjust the flavor, add more, if needed once it is cooked. My friend said that her culinary school instructor told them, salt the pasta water until it tastes like tears. It has worked for me. Also I just cry into the pasta pot and that is good too. Using your dominant hand, touch your pointer finger to the muscle at the base of your thumb, on the palm, the fleshy part that you can't move freely. When you use your pointer finger and press down on that muscle, that is rare, middle is medium rare, ring is medium, pinky is well done. Don't ever cook meat to well done. In light of the weird hands epidemic on Reddit, I think we've just alienated a bunch of people. One sagely proverb I learned once stated, cooking is an art, baking is a science. For example, if you're cooking something, especially if you know the recipe well, don't be afraid to be adventurous. Keep tasting, adding and testing until you get something that you think is freaking exquisite. On the flip side, if you're baking, follow that recipe like a motherfucking scientist. Weigh everything exactly and follow every step. If it's a good recipe and you follow it exactly, you cannot fail. Know the difference between baking and cooking and you will become better at both. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.